Jest 2016. This is interviews, music reviews, and more. This is The Hodder Show.
What is up, everybody? We're rolling audio here today on episode 366 of The Hodder Show. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you so very much for tuning in and clicking that play button on today's episode of the podcast. I've got a real fun episode for you here today, as I try to do every single week right here on The Hodder Show. I'm catching up with Connor Steele from Infinite Jest, also a studio musician and engineer. We have a lot of fun just kind of shooting the shit about what he's been up to over the last few years, his new band, Infinite Jest, how he got through that big thing that happened that we don't say the name of anymore because I don't want to get flagged. And also, which is a running joke throughout the whole episode, by the way. I just want to throw that out there. How that whole band came to be with his partner, as well as the writing of their new single, Hide and Seek, which we actually get to hear right here on the episode. And also some of his work as a studio musician and engineer, specifically working with the legendary Eddie Kramer, which obviously is a humongous deal, and as well as working with Neil Sanderson from 3 Days Grace on a recent song for John Mcyntosh. So really some great content here today from Connor, and it was a pleasure getting to catch up with him again. It had been 5 years since we heard from Connor, so it was great getting to catch up with him. Before we jump in, I want to give everybody a setup for their support on last week's episode of the show, my session with Dr. Torment, horror narrator. That was a really great time, really fun conversation. And that Star Wars tangent of like a 20-minute tangent was just a lot of fun. I don't think a lot of people expected us to talk about Star Wars when you're talking with a horror narrator, but that's why I love podcasting, because you never truly know what's going to come up when you're in the middle of a conversation, and that's how I like to do things here on The Hodder Show, folks. We try to have fun, just like we're going to have fun here today with my chat with Connor Steele from Infinite Jest, also a studio musician and engineer. Of course, real quick, before we jump in, we're going to hear a word from the sponsors who are helping The Hodder Show grow. Let's check it out. We got Connor Steele here back on The Hodder Show, first time in like 5 years. Of course, Connor rocking out now with Infinite Jest and also as a studio musician and engineer. Connor, it's been a while, man. How you doing?
Woo! Mr. Hodder himself, thank you so much for having me. It is a great honor to be here.
Oh, you flatter me, sir. You flatter me. Come on, keep it going.
I can go forever. This could just be a flattery kind of podcast.
Could it? Just no, I'm kidding. But it was really good to hear from you, man, because I've always kept an eye on kind of what you're doing. This is what happens in life, you know. I always try to keep track of what everyone's up to, but you know, you can't always keep up with things. And you reached out recently about your new band, and I checked out the single, and I thought it was really, really cool. So I was like, yeah, we gotta get together and have a little chat ski.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, as soon as we thought, you know, it'd be nice to do an interview, first name that came up was Mr. Hodder. So I had to come here first.
Let's be honest, it was the only name that came up. No.
It was, yes.
No, when I had someone say the other day about like talking about like music podcasts in Ontario, and there's a lot of fantastic ones, but they tend to kind of come and go. And
yes,
the one thing I always say is like, you know, I'm kind of like that cockroach that just won't. I'm always going to be here rocking and rolling, doing my thing. So when someone's like, oh, you, obviously I say this tongue in cheek, folks, but it's like, oh, you know, we thought of TJ. Well, yeah, who else is still around? Come on, let's
built a legacy.
Joking or just, yeah, that's it, right? 7 years or some shit. And the fact that we spoke 5 years ago is just, that might as well be another lifetime, dude. Like, what have you been doing the last 5 years?
I have just been trying to stay alive, just trying to take each day one at a time and see where it leads. No, but I mean, actually, I think last time we spoke, I was still in school at the time. I was in my second year of college. So yeah, after that, it's just been trying to find ways to make music in some form or another and preferably make enough money to live. Those are kind of the two like main goals.
Those are two very good goals. Do something you love, buy stuff to live.
Yes. Yes, if there's enough money for rent at the end of the month, then what more than do you need? You get to make music and live, and that's all you need.
That's it, man. And to be able to buy good toilet paper. That's
Yeah, I haven't reached that
crucial.
level yet. I'm still on the like single ply, but maybe next month I'll go to the double.
Listen, a wise man once said, no matter what you're going through in life, whatever hardships you may face, buy good toilet paper, because at least then the bills are late, but I got that Charmin Ultra Strong. Like, we're good.
This is great advice. I might take this to heart.
Shout out to John Panette. Folks, I apologize. I'm in a real punchy mood today, but good old John Panette. But no, that's cool, man, because like when you graduate from, where'd you go to school at, by the way? I can't recall.
It's a lovely little school called Metalworks Institutes.
Right. Okay.
So I did a 2-year, they call it like a music performance program, and sort of did like a guitar major in that.
Very cool. Very cool. And when you graduate from something like that, it's like the hope, obviously, is that you're going to be able to start working right away in the industry. That's the hope. But not everyone's able to achieve that. So it's cool to hear that you're being able to do that, because the reality is it's rough out there, especially now with everything that's happened the last couple of years with the thing we do not name. So it's cool to hear that you're able to do that, man.
Yeah, I mean it's a work in progress, you know. It's because I do all the various music projects and things, and I do teach a little bit on the side too, to help, again, just to help that rent get paid and everything. But you know, still working to at least to some level in music, still teaching and stuff, which is cool.
I think so long as you're always able to continually work towards what you want, that's super important. I talk all the time on the show about, you know, even if it's just one step towards your goal, always keep going, man. Even if you're, you know, hey, I'm able to teach some guitar lessons, that helps towards the end goal of, I want this to be my full-time job. Being able to go play in the studio for something, that's all working towards that. That's all on the resume. You know, I think it's important to never lose sight of the fact that, hey, this is all building to something.
Yeah, I think as long as you can sort of feel like you're moving forwards and not backwards, then you're in good shape.
Even if it's one step forward, two step back, at least you're taking that step forward. That's super, super important to be able to do. So as far as, you know, doing work like that, what's some projects that you've been working on the last few years before? Obviously, we have to talk about, you know, the thing that happened there a couple of years ago, but what were you working on kind of right before that all happened?
So I had been doing my previous band, which I think I'd been doing at the time of our last interview, and I think that ended sort of shortly before the thing that we can't say. But
Don't want to get flagged.
I got really close that time too.
That's okay. It's actually okay if you say that. It's just a joke, but yeah.
But yeah, so I'd been in that project, and then that sort of came to its conclusion. And at that point, I was just sort of free falling through the air, trying to figure out what to go into next. And I was just talking to my partner, Jarna, and just looking for something that I could do musically. And she was kind of like, what if we tried sort of doing something together? Actually, I'm not sure whose idea. It might have been, I'm not sure if it was my idea or her idea, but we sort of reached the idea of like, what if we tried just sort of making something musical together, even just for fun, but just to sort of have an outlet. Cause it's, you know, it's hard when your band ends and you're kind of like, okay, I was putting everything into that, and now that's not a thing anymore. So where do I sort of go from there? So it was like, we had that idea to sort of start doing something together. And we just, you know, sort of started writing and did a couple little like open mics and things. And it just sort of grew, I think, from there, leading into the big event. and it was great once that happened. It was really cool because, well, not there was cool things and not cool
I know
things.
what you mean. Yeah. It was really cool how the world shut down for like a year and a half. That was so cool.
That was great. Yeah. We were all terrified. No one knew what was going to happen, but it was great, you know?
What an exciting time to be alive, man.
Yes. Yes. It's like our like Great Depression, or our like, you know, it's our, well, at least so far. There could be bigger life events that occur.
Fucking hope so. But I know what you mean. Being able to, I'm assuming what you were getting at was, you guys were able to just be at home together and like work on music and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was my work, all my teaching work shut down for a period of time, and I was collecting those like sweet Serb juices. So yeah, I was still
Thanks,
had to,
Daddy Trudeau.
Thank you so much, Trudeau. So it was like, you know, I could still live, and I wasn't working at the time. So it was just a great time to try new things and just sort of try to build a project up from the ground up. So it was for all the horrible things that came from that. That was one nice thing for a while, was just having that time to experiment and just try new things.
When you guys started jamming, was it apparent right away? Because like obviously when you start a project with somebody who, I always say, like, you know, forming projects with friends and stuff is really cool because you hopefully already have a chemistry. I've never been in a situation where I've started a project with someone that I've been romantically involved with. How was that experience like when you started jamming? Like, was it kind of like right away you were like, okay, yeah, we got this? Or was it kind of like, how was it navigating those waters at first? And once you started finding your groove, did you find your sound right away, or did you just kind of have to experiment around?
It's definitely a process, I think, trying to work within that dynamic. I mean, one of the big things for me was it was essentially the same sort of dynamic in my first band. The singer and I in that band had also been in a personal relationship together. So I had a bit of experience in that world already, which I think was, you know, you kind of learn from the things to do and the things not to do in that situation. So I definitely had a slight leg up in that sense. But it's still a big process trying to figure that all out. And obviously I was coming from a position where I had been doing music for a long time and had gone to school for music and everything. But Jarna was not coming from that place. She was very new to the music world. So it's an interesting dynamic to try to build up when, you know, one person is coming from that world and one person is sort of being introduced to it. And it definitely took a long time to sort of like, I mean, the reason we did it is because as soon as we started trying things and writing, like we liked where it was going. But it definitely took us a long time to sort of put our sound together and figure out what exactly we wanted to do.
Well, and it's cool because when you sent me the track, I knew your style. Like you have a very like I can hear and go, okay, that's, you know, Connor's style of music, but it was still very different from what you were working on before. So it's cool that it's kind of a little more psychedelic, kind of. I think is the word I want to use. So it's very cool, but also still very groovy and hooky. Like it's not just it's there's a little more to it than just saying, oh, it's a psychedelic track. Like there's a little more to it than that, which I thought was really cool. When you started working on that with her, like when you were recording, how was that experience? Like working with, obviously when you're with your background in engineering and that, when you're working with a singer, working with singers to begin with can be very, as you know, sometimes you got to be careful how you say things if you think something should maybe be another way. How was that experience with her working with that?
She was great. I mean, you're totally right. It's always an experience, you know, or at least, you know, a learning curve sort of working with any new singer, I think, trying to figure out, because I mean, your job when you're the engineer or the producer or anyone in that moment who's not the artist, I think your job is essentially to work around them. Like you want to make sure that you're getting the best results from that singer or that artist or performer or whoever it is. And so there's always a learning curve to it, but I think she was really able to step into it fairly quickly. And it's a lot to take in, I think, when you first start, and all of a sudden it's like you're not just singing to yourself in your room or the bathroom or whatever, but you're in front of a microphone and you have headphones on, and all of a sudden you're hearing your voice through your headphones, and it can be a bit of a different sort of experience than you would ever be used to before that. But I think she handled it great. She was able to sort of step into that role very quickly, and we had a lot of time to just sort of experiment and build up that sort of rapport between us as working professionals and everything. So it was honestly been a great experience sort of putting that all together.
That's awesome to hear, because it definitely could go the other way, right? Where like if you suggest something, it's like, who the hell do you think you are? Like, you gotta see this person later on at the dinner table, so to speak. So
That's true.
I can definitely see that going the other way, where it's like, oh, you think I should sing this word differently? Oh, you think okay, yeah, all right, cool.
You don't want to, destroy the rest of your day after that,
Not that most people would be like that, but just I could definitely see it going the other way. So when you guys were working on this, I have to ask, obviously, me being me, what kind of a little studio setup did you have rocking when you were working on it?
We went through so we, because we've been working on this project for so long before anything came out. I mean, this is the first song to come out, and this was one of the first ones we wrote near the beginning of the big event. So because it's been such a long process before we finally got to this point where we started putting things out, it actually ended up happening over 3 different studios, all of which were home studios. It was just the fact that we, through this process, ended up living in 3 different places over the years. So the first one was the most budget. This was just in Jarna's bedroom. There was a couple small pieces of equipment and a microphone that we had rented from Long and McQuaid, but it was extremely budget setup. And we were living with a roommate at the time, and our roommate was very, very big into the gaming sort of world, and he was someone, as there are some people like this, where when they play video games, they will sometimes get very angry and they will shout and sometimes throw things. So if you listen to any of the demos that we did from the time, you can just hear some guy just like screaming in the background.
You stupid motherfucker.
Exactly.
Dude, I'm right there. So, how come when I throw a flashbang, nothing happens? And when I get one thrown at me, it's like the world's coming down.
Exactly. Yeah, he was playing like Call of Duty, and it's intimidating. We're trying to like record this vocal, and someone's like screaming, "I'm gonna kill you" in the background.
See, I'd use that as like an intro or loop or something. I'd be that guy.
True.
Like
yeah,
that,
we
like
should use
Midwest emo, like the meme of like, this guy just screaming and you just have a guitar under it. Like, come on, that'd be great.
I think so.
Maybe it doesn't fit the style, but whatever.
So that was our first one, and then we moved to our own place, and we got a slight upgrade where we sort of set up this. So we had like a 1-bedroom plus den, and so the den was the studio, but the den, I mean, this is in a downtown Toronto condo. So when they say den, more of a closet type situation. So it was our little like recording studio closet, where we tried to fit. By this point, we had acquired a decent amount of gear, and we just squeezed everything into this like little closet and did all the vocals and stuff and all the instruments, even the guitars, recording like live amps and everything with microphones in this little closet. And it was chaotic extremely, and the room just sounded awful. But we were able to get a lot of the recording done there, and then finally at our new place, we have. Where I'm recording from right now, we have a little bit more space and everything, so we're able to sort of do the mixing and stuff from here, which was nice to have, at least not be in a closet.
There's something to be said for having a closet just for like recording vocals when you have another room to like here's the studio, oh, but here's the closet, this is like the vocal booth, you know? That's not when the closet is the studio. That's
Exactly. Ideally there's another room as well.
yeah, I hear you, brother. I've got a corner in this room, and this is like I went from having a corner of a room to a full room for like I think a half a month to now I have a corner again. So I feel you big time.
It's a journey, you know. You just keep trying to like slowly bump it up every once in a while, but you know, sometimes you look back fondly on the old place and you're like, "Oh, you know, you remember back when we were recording in that closet?"
Oh yeah, man. Even like how when we talked the first time, I was in, you know, the corner of the bedroom, like still at my parents' place. Like, you know, it was just like I think back, like, man, I can't believe I recorded like that. Like, geez, I can't believe that. So it's fun to be able to look back on that. So during those first initial kind of like those sessions in those writing sessions, was that when hide and seek came about, or was that like a later session? Like, how did you just kind of like have a bunch of songs you had written and then you started working on them for recording?
Yeah, a lot of it was just kind of like, you know, let's write as much as we possibly can and see where it goes. And it's one of those things that when you don't have, because we're just sort of doing it on our own and we didn't have you know, like a producer or anyone, it's hard to sort of know when to stop. You know, so it's like we'd write a bunch of songs and we'd be like, okay, maybe we should like record these and start putting them out. And then we'd record another batch, or sorry, we'd write another batch, and then we'd be like, you know what, these ones are actually a little bit better than the old ones. What if we don't put anything out yet, and we like, you know, keep writing, and of course it. I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back now, it's like obviously that's going to go on forever. You're never going to reach the point where it's like, okay, this is the best that we can do.
Eventually, you got to drop something. Yeah.
Yeah. And hide and seek was actually one of the early ones that we sort of came back to, and you know, we're like, you know, that was actually a pretty decent one. What if we? And it's a weird song in a way to start with, because it's not like we have some songs that are like a little bit poppier, a little catchier, sort of more you know, standard song form and everything. So this was kind of a weird choice to put out as a first one, but we're like, hey, why not? It's unique. It sounds kind of different than a lot of the stuff that maybe is happening right now. So it's, you know, let's introduce ourselves to people as strange, and then maybe we can get pop from there once we're strange enough, sort of thing.
I think that's a smart move, because when you're even like someone in my position, you know, I'll get sent a lot of different stuff from bands, and there's a lot of killer bands out there. And I'm a big fan too of just, you know, ye old verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. Like I'm a sucker for all that kind of stuff even. But so when I get sent something like hide and seek, where it's not structured traditionally, it's very different and unique, but then also still I can hear, okay, there's, like I said, there's hooks in there. Okay, there's some kind of still some groove there. Like, okay, cool. All right. Like you still get a sense of what you guys are maybe all about, while still being, oh yeah, we can get trippy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's like it's hard too, I think, for us, because for all the stuff that we're writing, it sometimes it feels like every song is veering in these like totally different directions. So it's hard to sort of take one and be like, that's sort of the one that's representative of us.
Right.
But it's one path. And you know, maybe the next one will be like, watch, I know what the next one's going to be. The next one is like sort of somewhat similar, but after that it could be like, you know, a totally new path. And you know, maybe it's kind of cool that I think, at least for me as a listener, listening to artists and bands and things, like it's cool when you have no idea what to expect next from an artist. I think that's can be a little bit cooler than when you know, okay, I know, you know, as soon as you hear they're dropping a new single or album or something, it's like you know exactly what that's going to sound like, sort of thing.
Right. I'm also a big fan of that, when you obviously with certain bands, like they kind of sort of have to, you know, like obviously me being more of like a metal hard rock guy, you kind of know what to go, you know, Hatebreed's releasing a new song. Okay, it's going to sound like Hatebreed, you know.
Right.
I was about to say Godsmack, but that's not necessarily true anymore. So like, you know, not that I'm hating on it, but it's cool to hear. It's almost like you guys have kind of an infinite number of ways that you can release music, right? Because
Ooh, that was a good little pun there.
Yes, I'm all about it. I apologize for that, folks. But that's really awesome, man. Like to know that you guys are going to keep, because there's nothing worse than I think when you think you have to stick with a certain sound. Right? It's like, hey, we are a pop rock band, so to speak. We can't experiment outside of that. We need the old "don't bore us, get to the chorus" kind of shit. Like let's songs that are like a bumper sticker, whatever Dave Grohl said in that one interview that I always quote. Just we can. It's cool to know that, you guys are mindful of the fact that you can get outside of that box and let's have some fun. Let's get groovy and see what we can do. I think it's very necessary nowadays in a world where, let's be honest, there's a lot of very cookie cutter stuff out there. Or there's a lot of the new wave of rock and roll that sounds like stuff from 40 years ago. Like I'm just like where's the unique stuff? So it's cool to hear you guys have that mindset for sure. But what I would love to do here now, folks, we've talked a little bit about it. I would love to play the single for you guys now, Hide and Seek by Infinite Jest, and then we're going to come back and keep having a chat with Connor Steele here. So crank it up, folks. Enjoy. This is the debut single from Infinite Jest, Hide and Seek.
Woo!
back here with Connor Steele. You guys just heard his band Infinite Jest brand new debut single, Hide and Seek. Really fun track. Connor, I've got to ask, what is your favorite part about that song? Do you have like a favorite part or a favorite thing about the song?
I think doing the strings was really exciting. So yeah, to do the strings, it was like first thing I did was sort of make them on my own, just using like MIDI instruments and or MIDI controller to do virtual instruments, and sort of doing it that way. But I was sort of like, wouldn't it be cool if we could have actual violin, viola, cello players, like have an actual string section sort of play on it, make it sound again maybe just a little bit different than sort of the typical modern production style. And so we did it. This was all during the big event, so we could not actually have be in the same room with musicians much to do it. So for all the session musicians that we worked with, the strings and the drums as well, it was all working remotely with musicians. So it's really fun. We're working with the string players. We're in Australia, living in Australia. So it was like we're on opposite ends of the world, and completely like their day was our night and everything. But it was fun just sort of sending MIDI files back and forth and getting them to sort of record these really great string sections and just trying to explain to them like it's not bad when you're writing typical melodic lines and stuff. But if you hear at the beginning of the song or sort of in the bridge section before the big ending, when you're hearing all those like screeching noises and the more dissonant sort of string parts, it's really fun as someone like me who is not an arranger, not someone from the orchestral world, trying to explain to these string players like just make it screech, like just scratch on it and just make like weird shit. So it's and trying to communicate all this through like emails and stuff. So it's a fun process. But I think yeah, listening back, doing the strings was fun. Adding those really creepy like kids laughing and stuff in that little bridge section as well was fun. Just all the weird stuff was really cool to do.
I dig weird, but I also have to tell you this real quick. I forgot to tell you this beforehand, so I'm glad I just remembered on air. So when you sent me the single, I was actually out walking my dog. And so I was like, I'm going to pop this on right now. And I'm walking and I could hear the kids laughing. I kept going like looking around because I was like, okay, like I'm like 99% sure this is in the song. But I also was like, I can't, like I was literally in the middle of I'm like, what? Why am I hearing children laughing? Because as a horror fan, there's nothing worse than when you hear children laughing when you're not supposed to.
Yes.
But yeah, I really dig like those the dissonant sounds and the creepy kind of ambient-y type sound. Like I'm a big fan of that kind of stuff. So that's really awesome.
That was our goal. Just to make you like sort of look around and question everything around you.
Well, you succeeded. That's fantastic. Well, then, as far as if you can speak on this, obviously, lyrically, I'm always curious, what is the general theme of Hide and Seek?
That is a great question. One to which I will not tell you the answer. No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
I don't actually talk about lyrics. I was going to say you could take the Aaron Lewis approach and just be like perfectly vague. That's I don't know. You tell me. What's it about?
I'm a huge fan of the filmmaker David Lynch. And so he does this a lot, but there's this one interview of him where someone's asking him like, could you tell us the meaning of this scene? And they're going on like, what is it about? Could you tell us? And David Lynch just responds, no. That's his only response. No. But so in terms of lyrics, it's interesting for me. I mean, so in terms of the process of writing lyrics for Infinite Jest stuff, part of it depends on who is writing the lyrics. Like sometimes it'll be Jarna writing the lyrics, and sometimes myself. In this case, it was me. Um, and my lyric process is really strange because if I try to sit down with a pen and paper or something and try to actually articulate my thoughts and form, logical sentences and things, I can't do it. I get the most like generic things that I can't stand. And so for me, the process is more like improvisational. So it's more like me. I'll have a rough idea of the melody and everything, and I'll just hit record on my phone, and I'll just sing, and I'll just try to sing whatever words happen to come out. And I'll do that a few times, get this sort of like big list of lines, and sometimes you can't even understand what I'm saying, which is kind of even better because then I can sort of interpret what I was possibly trying to sing. And then I just sort of like piece it together from there. So in terms of like understanding the meaning and things, it's really fun because it's kind of like I get to take the position of the listener as well and sort of interpret my own lyrics and things, um, which is kind of cool. And I think that's kind of what tells you whether you're or not you like those lyrics. It's kind of like if I can get a sense of like, oh yeah, I think that's maybe what I was trying to say. Like if I can develop my own meaning of what I was going for, then I love it. And then I'm really happy. And if I can't pull anything from it that makes sense to me, then I throw it out. And it's like, okay, let's do this again until I have my own understanding of it. But it's kind of cool because your own view then of your own interpretation of what the lyrics are might be totally different than everyone else's. So I love getting to hear what it means to other people and things, because sometimes it's exactly what I was going for, but sometimes it's totally different, which I think is sometimes even more cool to just to hear people's interpretations versus your own interpretation.
It's always fun. And, as much as it can also be the side of things where it's like, there's a famous story from Sean Morgan from Seether where he talks about their song Burrito. And what's like he doesn't talk about what that song's about because he's like, it was named after an episode of the Osbournes because they couldn't figure out a name for it. And there's an episode where Ozzy's like freaking out about burritos. So he was like, oh, we're gonna name it Burrito. But he's like, I will never talk for what that song means because what if my explanation sucks? There's all these speculations, and it's like, oh well, it's like no. He's like, I don't. So he's like, I don't talk about it. But it's also cool, I think, to speak about things a little bit while still knowing that people can take their own interpretation from things. That's a lot of fun, and that's something I used to do all the time when I do my music showcases. I talk about what I think a song's about. I don't do that anymore. It's just a personal choice because I like to let the art speak for itself to the listener. But I've gotten things wrong a lot, which is also fun. As far as with Infinite Jest, what's kind of the next step for you guys?
Great question. So we do have so it was great because we waited so long to put things out, we got to sort of build up a small bank of things that we're happy with and things that we could finish and try to get something going so we wouldn't have huge gaps between songs and projects and things. So we have another single that'll be hopefully be coming out in, I'd say, just over a month or so until the next one. And I think that's sort of the starting point for us is sort of taking a bit more of the studio approach first, and just trying to sort of build up a bit of any kind of following. I don't want it to be like build up the big fan base and stuff, but just build up some sort of group of people who like your music and want to hear what's next and everything, so that by the time you go to do live shows and things, you have people who want to come out, and it's not just like begging your friends and family to come see you, and obviously there'll still be a lot of that, but it's it's cool if by the time you're doing that it feels like you aren't starting purely from the ground up sort of thing. Like you have a bit of something that you've already built to sort of keep going from as you start to do live shows and things. So we're super excited to do the live shows. It's just we want to do it right. We want to make it a big show and have set decorations on stage and do all these cool light things. And I think in order to get there, it's like we've got to build up what the band is and what the music and everything is. So I think that's sort of the starting point is sort of going through, probably a couple more, 2 or 3 more singles, and then probably an EP after that. And then hopefully, if anyone is still listening at that point, then I think we'll start going into the shows.
So the plan isn't to just do the single thing. You're planning on doing an official EP release in that, because I know a lot of bands just go the single route nowadays.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard. It's very tempting to there just seems to be this demand for constant content, like an endless stream of entertainment, which is to some degree with the band name comes from a few different places, and including the fairly famous book of the same name. But yeah, I think part of it was based around that idea of infinite entertainment, and it's it's a lot to think about doing a big project like an EP or an album or something, because there's just so much demand for like, what are you putting out today? What's tomorrow? Like it's that infinite content, infinite entertainment sort of thing. But I think I love, like, I have a couple years ago got a record player finally, and I love just putting on a vinyl and just listening front to back as this like full package. It's it's like putting on like a great film or something. It feels more than just putting out individual scenes or something, which is cool. But sometimes you want that full package to kind of dive into.
Yeah, I'm very much of the same mindset. Like obviously, generationally, things are obviously a little different, but I still feel like albums have a place. I don't think it's like, I'm not a big fan of just release singles. Personally, just like, I agree that content is, I mean, for God's sakes, it's like sometimes musicians are also full-time content creators, which a
True.
lot of big time musicians have talked about that, where it's like the fact that, like Ed Sheeran has to also spend all day making TikToks as well as be fucking Ed Sheeran. It's like, what is he's good. I don't think he needs to worry about getting famous on TikTok. Everyone knows who he is, but there's almost a demand for that side of things as well. But to hear that you guys are really focusing in on what you want to do live, because also live music is, and hopefully this will continue. I say that there's definitely a resurgence happening with live music. There's a lot more bands that are performing nowadays. There's a lot more people going to shows, at least from what I see. Have you had any kind of steps out into the live music world since that thing ended, or have you strictly been kind of just in the studio?
I've done a couple small live things, not as myself, but just as a guitar player for other live bands who were in need, and just doing it for fun, just to be like, because you miss it so much after the thing that shall not be named. It's like it was. So,
I really appreciate you playing along with me on this.
I'm doing so good. But I was doing so many shows before that, and after whatever it was, 2 years or something, where you couldn't do any shows, it feels so good to be back on stage again and to be just acting like an idiot again and jumping around and just hitting strings and dancing and all that stuff is just so fun to be back again.
Wearing cool sunglasses, it's all part of the game, right?
Yeah, I used to have so many cool hats, and it's like, you in this absolutely insane giant hats that you're never going to find a like socially acceptable place for again. But on stage, it's like not to sound like a joke or anything, but on stage, it's like you can genuinely be whoever you want to be. It's that place of pure freedom and creative expression and everything, which is amazing.
It's very true. I think that's a very underrated part of entertainment in general, but specifically music when you're on stage. Like, you can be whoever you want to be. that is a different person. Some people don't agree with that mindset, but it's like that can be a very different person. You can,
Yeah.
it's not like you know, it's like I know that a lot of in the metal world, a lot of metal front men deal with this, right? Or front women, like where they'll be on stage screaming in people's faces and being all aggressive, but then off stage, they're like just an absolute sweetheart.
Yeah.
And that's been my experience. I talk with like, shout out to my boy Jacob from McGyler. Like first time I met Jacob, I was like, he's so soft spoken and polite. Like he's a great guy. Like not that I thought he was going to be an asshole, but like, you know what I mean? Like it's always just like, oh, like, he's so like soft spoken and polite. Like it's just even to me still sometimes I'm like, but you were just on stage, like you're the front man of a death metal band. Like what are you talking about? Like
I
it's
find
so
that with a lot of
strange.
them. Yeah, I find that with a lot of the metal guys, it's like almost all the metal guys I've met have been like nicest people ever, and it's maybe part of it's because they whatever anger or frustrations or anything they have, they get on stage and they get all of it out there in that sort of beautiful, spiritual, meditative, therapeutic experience, and then when they get off, it's like now they're a happy, healthy person, you know?
I find that a lot in like the horror world as well. Like the horror authors and like voice actors and stuff. I find they're all just like the most level-headed, wonderful people. And it's just, it's gotta be because of that. Like you're purging that dark energy, so to speak. But
Yes.
for you, how was it getting on the stage for the first time after
Oh,
what
it's
happened?
it's it's always terrifying, honestly. It's like the lead up to is always the hardest. I think anyone who goes on stage, I think at least most people who perform on stage are like this. I think there's very few people. I mean, there's a famous quote cannot remember for the life of me who said it, but someone basically said if you ever reach the point where you don't get nervous to get on stage anymore, it's time to quit, because it's, your heart's not in it anymore if you don't care and you don't fear or get nervous about what people might think when you get up there. So it's a very natural sort of intimidating thing as you go up and as you start, but and especially when you haven't done it for a while, but it comes back very quickly, and it's all of a sudden you ease into it. You get through the first song and you're like, oh yeah, this is what this is like again. So it's, initial fear and terror, but then beauty and peace after that, I think.
I was going to actually use that quote myself. So that's funny.
uh,
I can't
you know
remember
what
who said it either, though. I was trying to remember, but it's a
I might
wonderful
have gotten
quote.
it from you.
I don't know. It's very, I know I stole it from somebody, so I can't say anything, but it's actually my original quote. I'm a philosopher part-time. But that's really cool, man. That's awesome. Well, and speaking on, kind of filling in and jamming with a band,
Mhm.
on top of playing with Infinite Jest, you also, as we mentioned, do some studio work. And I've never really spoken with anyone about that world. So I'm super curious. How did you start getting into, filling in with bands that you're not necessarily a full-time member of, but then also in the studio working with artists that, either playing guitar or writing? How did that all start for you?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of the playing live with bands and stuff, or honestly all of it, to some level, sort of goes back to like the metalwork scene, which is one of the nicer things, because sometimes you finish school, you finish music school, and you're trying to look for work and everything, and you're like, did this education actually do anything for me? Have I gotten anything from this? But I think definitely one of the big things that you get from it are those friendships and those connections and professional relationships and things. So in terms of like the bands that I was filling in with and stuff, a lot of those, like at least one of the members or multiple of the members, I would have met through Metalworks or through a friend through Metalworks or something. So a lot of stuff happened that way. And in terms of getting into some of the studio musician stuff and the engineering and everything, to some degree, the same thing. Basically, what would happen is I've always wanted to really get into session musician stuff or engineering or just being in a music studio in some form or another. So I would write all these emails to studios and things and be like, please, I will be an intern. I will work for free. I will do whatever you want. Please give me a chance. And for the most part, I would not hear back from anyone, which which I think is normal just because there's so many people going for those spots. It's just so unbelievably competitive, and the number of studios and things continues to seemingly decline, while the number of people wanting to get into this world, I think, only continues to grow. So it's an extremely tough thing to get started on, and so the break that eventually sort of came from all that was actually in a Facebook gear group. Shout out to All Buttons In on Facebook, the real ones. So this artist, amazing artist and songwriter named John Mcyntosh, who I've been working with for a long time now. He made a post in this like Facebook All Buttons In gear group, and was like, I'm looking for someone who can help me out in my studio and can sort of work with me in some form or another, doing a little bit of engineering, a little bit of session musician work, and can just do a little bit of everything. And so immediately I jumped on and I replied, and I was like, please, I would love to do this. Like, this sounds amazing. I'm all in. And then I checked back like 2 minutes later, and there was like 100 other people who had commented, all saying the same thing. So I was kind of like, this is not looking too good for me right now. But I got extremely lucky that one of my old, I guess, like professors from Metalworks also happened to see the post. And he was amazingly kind and amazing enough to leave a comment saying that he recommended me and saying that I was, great to work with, and that just basically recommending me to John. And so that's how I got the start. I started working with John, and then started branching out slowly from there.
And from there, obviously, I have to bring it up because I saw a picture that, and what's funny is this was before you reached out to me, that I saw this picture and I was like, that's awesome. I saw that you very recently worked with the legendary, and that's a, people throw the word legendary around sometimes, but this is real. You got to work with Eddie Kramer, which, if for some reason you are not familiar with who Eddie Kramer is, just Google him and you'll be like, oh, like that guy. Yeah, that guy. You got to work with Eddie Kramer recently in the studio, as well as working with Neil Sanderson from 3 Days Grace, who in himself is, that alone is awesome, because I'm a huge 3 Days Grace fan. But then it's like, oh, and also this guy named Eddie Kramer. How was that experience for you working with them? Was that like not like the most intimidating thing in the world, being in the same room as Eddie Kramer? How was it?
Oh yeah, that was a very crazy journey. No, that was it was amazing getting to work with both of them. And it's funny actually, because I think I was mentioning, but just before we jumped on the air here, that just before this, I was listening to the first podcast that we did together 5 years ago. And in that podcast, you asked me like what was the first music I ever started listening to? Like, how did I get into wanting to do music, and sort of my early inspirations and things. And the big one that I gave was Jimi Hendrix.
Yes.
I was sort of like, that's why I got into music, was I heard Jimi Hendrix and I was like, that's what I want to spend the rest of my life doing. So now in some ways it kind of feels like coming full circle to be like, oh yeah, I got to do a little project with the guy who engineered for Jimi Hendrix and worked with Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin and all those amazing bands and stuff. So it's a very cool experience now, sort of feeling like that. And I told Eddie that too when I did the session, that's, hearing Jimi Hendrix got me into music. And he was very humble. He's a super humble, nice guy. Also like the funniest guy that you will ever meet in your life. Just like jokes constantly and will just insult you and make fun of you constantly, but in the most like loving way.
That part was
like,
shit. No.
He'll like mess with you a little bit. He'll be like, he would be like, Connor, I need to tell you something important. He's like, you are the most talented guitar player that I've ever worked with, who is sitting in this room right now. So
that's great. You're without a doubt the most talented guitar player in this room.
And the only guitar player in this room, but also the most talented.
You're also by far the most talented.
But he's been, so I think done 2 songs with him now. one in person, and then the second one we just did a couple weeks ago, which is like a remote Zoom sort of session. But those have been great, and working with Neil has been amazing as well. I mean, it's actually the same project. It's all for the artist that I mentioned, John Mcyntosh. So yeah, that was sort of how, well, through John, I met one of his engineer acquaintances named Jason. And Jason also works with Eddie. So it's a long, connecting tree of roots and things like everything in the music industry. But yeah, it's been working with Eddie and with Neil on a couple songs. And Neil has been amazing as well. Also, like, incredibly nice guy, insanely talented musician and artist and songwriter and every producer, everything else. So it's very intimidating when you step into a room and it's those two guys looking back at you, but they're really good at making you feel at home, which is amazing.
That's really awesome to hear, because they definitely wouldn't have to be nice, right? Like, they could be like, you'd kind of be like, well, yeah, like, I get it. But it's always cool to hear when people you have mad respect for, and also who are, of legendary status. It's also like, oh, they're also just cool dudes. Like, that's really cool and really exciting, man. I'm hyped to hear more of what you're working on with John. He's got some really great stuff, so that's really cool. Really cool to hear. As far as we kind of get ready to wind down here, what, obviously Infinite Jest is kind of the immediate what's next, but like what else are you kind of getting ready to work on moving forward? Is there any more studio projects or anything, or?
Yeah, I'm trying to dive into the a bit more into the studio world. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of like engineering sessions and stuff lately, which has been great. Been working with these hip hop guys. I believe they go under the name Mustakim. But these incredibly talented hip hop guys who are also like some of the nicest people I've ever met. And that's been great because that feels very far outside of my natural world, sort of doing this hip hop engineering and stuff. But that's been amazing, doing all that stuff. So I'm trying to sort of explore a bit more on that side and the session stuff. I'm also really curious to get more into doing. I know I mentioned this last time, which feels strange bringing up the same thing, but I still really want to get into to more like scoring and doing music for film and stuff. I'm still super passionate about getting into. It's another one of those things that's can be a very hard world, I think, to break into, but I'd love to go into that side of things, and then yeah, just trying to do everything I can with Infinite Jest and just trying to make music and make art. And it's like, if you keep making something every day, it makes each day a little bit better and makes it feel like you got to share a little piece of yourself with the world. And what more could you ask for?
Always working towards the goal, right? That's
Yeah.
what it's all about at the end of the day, man. That's fantastic. Last two questions I have for you here. I may have asked you this one last time, as it's the staple question I always end off with. Tell me either your best or worst show story. Or you can do one of the other, or you can do both, whatever you choose.
Ooh, best or worst show
or
story?
your favorite show story, something of that nature.
That's good. I'm trying to like dig back and remember all of those because it feels like it's been so long since a lot of the shows happened. Trying to dig back. I mean, some of the Halloween shows were super fun, getting to do like full on like costumes and that sort of side of things, doing all the spooky stuff for Halloween was great. Getting lost on the way to venues and things, and trying to fit an entire band into this like tiny little like car, and all the typical like band sort of stuff that you go through when you're trying to do shows, or like getting on stage and about to play a song and all of a sudden being like, I cannot for the life of me remember how this song goes.
How does the song go that I wrote goes? What's this?
It's like that, yeah, that like terrifying moment. It doesn't happen very often, but the terrifying moment where it's something really important that you need to remember, that you've always remembered and you've never had any trouble remembering, and in that moment it's like totally gone. So yeah, all of that sort of stuff. I'm sure there are like some specific ones that I'm forgetting here. But yeah, I think just those sort of like unique little moments that you get to experience as a musician or performer and things. But it's like no matter how rough the experience is at the time, you always get to, I think, look back on those ones really fondly and be like, it was horrible in the moment, but looking back now, it's a nice story to tell, and it's you can look back on it fondly, I think.
And those are always the best experiences. And I very much appreciate the time, Connor. It's been really fun getting to catch up with you. Where can the good people find Infinite Jest if they want to check you guys out more?
Oh, this is such a good question. I have this amazing little thing that my lovely partner and singer for Infinite Jest, Jarna, has written, where it has all this important information. There's so much great stuff on here. Okay, so we have an Instagram, which is Infinite Jest Official. We have a TikTok, which is also Infinite Jest Official. We even have one of those old school things called websites that you can check out, which is called infinitejestband.com. I have so many other fun things written on here, but those are the contact ones.
Fantastic, man. And before we go here, as I am obviously a journalist, I have to ask this question here. A lot of people are probably burning to know this information. When is the Men of Steel reunion happening? The people want to know.
You know what? I don't think any of us have. Well, I'm sure like a lot of them have still kept. I haven't kept in contact with a lot of the Ali and Mav and Nathan and everyone, but I think this could be the beginning. This could be our one of our Coachella moment where we all finally reunite together at last and perform. We don't think we had any original songs, so it would just be us getting on stage to perform like Avenged Sevenfold covers again. But I think this could be the start of a beautiful Men of Steel reunion. This could be the tour.
We'll make it happen here. We make things happen here on the Harder Show, folks. Connor, it's been a pleasure getting to chat with you again, man, and catch up. Thanks so much for your time.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I will see you again in another 5 years.
Let's make it happen. All right, folks, there you have it. My chat with Connor Steele from Infinite Jest. Hope that you guys enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. It was great getting to catch up with Connor. It had been over 5 years, so that was definitely a lot of fun. I'll have a link down below the description of this podcast to Infinite Jest's website. Go ahead and check them out. There's going to be some fun stuff coming from them, and especially once that EP is out, we'll definitely have to chat with Connor again. And be sure to follow them on social media as well. Big shouts to Connor for coming on the show here today. And big shouts to you for listening. Thank you so very much. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave a rating if you can and hit that subscribe button however you're listening. Ratings do help this podcast grow, especially the 5-star ratings. However, if you don't think I have earned the 5-star rating, that's of course totally okay. Let me know what you think I can improve on. I'm always looking to do better at this podcast game. And if you're looking to support the show further, consider following us on social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under The Harder Show. I also have a Discord, which we have way too much fun on. I like to go on there and share stupid fun memes and music and have really random fun conversations, as well as in the voice chat as well. So we have a ton of fun. Check out the Discord. If you would like to join the Discord, let me know, and I will send you a link that will be an invite code for you to come on and hang out in the Harder Show Discord. And if you want to support the show a little more than that, if you think I have earned a little more support, consider joining the Harder Show Patreon, patreon.com/The Harder Show, joining at the $1, $5, or $10 tier. Anything above the $5 tier will get you access to the Taped Depredation Horror Narration Podcast, which I just have a blast doing and put actually a lot of work into, considering it's just supposed to be a kind of a one-off thing that I do at least once a month on Patreon. But in all actuality, I probably do it more like 2 or 3 times a month, and we have a ton of fun over there. And on top of all of that, you'll also get a shout out on the end of every single episode of the show, just like I'm going to do right now for all of my Patreon supporters, my hardheads. We, of course, have Scott Duquette, Ronan Komori, Wolf Delta Pi. Both of them are, of course, members of the Baseline Feed podcast. Go check it out. Actor extraordinaire Eric Phones, Arthur Unk, Mike Quintero of Shutter Radio, C.M. Peters, who of course is a author and also a part of the Baseline Feed podcast, Jason Reese from J. Digital Arts, Terry and Janet Hodder. That's right, my parents are patrons. How cool is that? The people who are directly responsible for this podcast. Brandon Bowden of Bowden Voice, and of course, last but not least, Neil Skrupa of Necrotic Voice. Big shouts to all my patrons. It means the world to me to have your support, guys. Thank you so very much. And thank you so much for listening, especially if you're still listening. You're seriously the best. I appreciate it so much. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll catch you next time right here on The Harder Show. Take it easy, guys.